Welcome to the video guide for Ciella Wrath Expert, a Nagato Uprising boss fight released as part of patch 1.19 of Dragalia Lost. My name is Xenozillus, and let's get straight to it. As a primer, Ciella has two mechanics present throughout the fight. The first mechanic is Vulnerability. Taking damage from Ciella will apply a stack of Vulnerability, increasing the damage you take from future attacks. This can stack up to 3 times, and each stack will decay after a set period has elapsed. Ciella's second mechanic is Veil. During certain mechanics of the fight, Ciella will become untargetable, visually indicated by her transparency. She will end this untargetable phase with a near room-wide AoE. As with all Nagato fights, certain mechanics will be skipped or repeated based on phase progression and remaining hit points. Phase 1. The fight opens with a clap. These will occur intermittently throughout the fight, dealing a moderate amount of damage and applying a stack of vulnerability. Heal and shield through this as necessary. Bolts from above. Each player is targeted with a series of red AoEs. These can be dodged by rolling or iframed. Depending on the length of your iframe, you may want to dodge the initial arrows with movement before iframing. Be careful not to group up too closely with other players during this mechanic. Rebounding Arrows. Ciella will target the player furthest from her, firing a fan of arrows with red telegraphs. These will fly in straight lines until they reach the edge of the arena, after which they will bounce at random. These arrows can be dodge rolled or iframed with skills. Dash. Ciella will target the furthest player with a telegraphed dash. Dodge or iframe this as appropriate. Spin. Ciella will slowly charge a small red AoE centered on herself. Dodge or iframe this as necessary. Charged Arrow. Ciella will target the furthest player, charging a beam attack telegraphed by a blue glow on her bow. This will resolve in roughly 2 seconds, but can be dodged or iframed. Summon Crystal Arrow. Each player will be targeted with a purple AoE, spawning crystal arrows. These will inflict bog in melee range and can be destroyed with a moderate amount of damage. Clear these in time for the following mechanic. Ideally, players should be grouped before the arrow markers spawn, to allow skills to hit multiple arrows more easily. Frigid Beam. Ciella will navigate to the center of the arena before charging a large purple telegraph. Firing the beam, she will begin to rotate clockwise. Getting hit by the beam will inflict freeze. If the beam comes into contact with a crystal arrow, it will freeze and then release 6 purple marked projectiles in a star pattern. Avoid this by following her rotation. Mist Veil. Ciella will run to the top right corner of the arena before activating her Veil mechanic. After completing a lap of the arena, Ciella will fire a large purple AoE covering a significant portion of the arena. This can be avoided by waiting directly between her and the edge of the arena. After this, Ciella will repeat her mechanics until her first health bar is depleted and she is pushed to Phase 2. A typical fast player can expect to finish Phase 1 soon after the first Mist Veil. Phase 2. Ciella will open Phase 2 with an unavoidable clap. Following this is Karmic Shield. Ciella will apply an 8% defense buff on herself that lasts for the remainder of the fight. This buff can be removed by certain healers or even with a spiraled Ranzel skill share if you're looking for a budget option. Ciella will repeat this intermittently throughout the fight, so buff clearing will be necessary to prevent the buff stacking too high and elongating the fight. After this is Cryogenic Meteor. Each player will be targeted with a purple AoE, after which a block of ice will be dropped on the AoE location. These meteors will be part of the next mechanic. If you brought Linear to this fight, avoid using S1 due to the risk of inflicting sleep. Inflicting sleep at this part of the fight will likely wipe your team. Following the meteors is Floor of Despair. Purple arrow telegraphs will appear on the floor, announcing an incoming wave. Position yourself so that the meteors are between yourself and the wave to avoid taking significant damage. The waves from Floor of Despair come in pairs and can come from the top left or top right of the arena. Careful positioning of the meteors beforehand can allow you to maintain uptime during this mechanic. Whilst from above appears in Phase 1, however in Phase 2 the mechanic is now purple and should be avoided through movement. Players should take care to maintain appropriate distance between each other. Mist Veil in Phase 2 differs in 2 ways. Ciella will visit 3 sides of the arena before firing her AoE towards the middle. Players should watch for her movement from the center of the arena, moving behind her after her movement has resolved. The AoE is now larger and symmetrical, shrinking the safe spot to a small zone between her and the arena edge. The spin in Phase 2 is similar to the spin mechanic in Phase 1. The central AoE is now larger, and Ciella is accompanied with extra red AoEs in front of and behind her. Like all red telegraphs, this can be avoided by dodging or iframing. In Phase 2, Frigid Beam functions similarly to Phase 1. However, the beam now spans the diameter of the arena and will start on her left and right as opposed to in front of her. This can be avoided similarly to Phase 1 by following her rotation. Rebounding Arrows in Phase 2 will fire more projectiles. This is still handled with the same method as in Phase 1, however. This concludes the mechanics you'll encounter in Phase 2. Keep in mind that mechanics may repeat, and the order in which you encounter them may vary depending on your team DPS. When it comes to team compositions, you'll typically encounter healer and 3 DPS or buffer and 3 DPS compositions. The buffer most frequently used is Tobias. When Tobias is the buffer within the 3 DPS and buffer composition, you should be equipped with the Dragon Freya to act as the healer within the team. If you opt to use a healer within your team composition, healers used for the fight are typically Lowen and Grace for their ability to dispel Ciella's stacking defense buff. There are a variety of DPS characters used for the fight. The speed clear composition is typically 3 Hawks with a single healing Tobias, though many other units are also viable. Preferred units in the DPS role are typically Leaf, Ranzel, Hawk, and Silas, though I also encounter some Senua and some Norwin, as well as the occasional Joachim or Noel. For your first clears, I would recommend bringing one of the 4 preferred DPS units. In terms of power level, you should look to bring at least a maximum Unbound Chimera Tech Tier 2 weapon, ending up at roughly 8 to 8,500 might for non-spiraled characters. Players struggling to meet that metric may need to work on the Halidom facilities or consider augments. The barrier to entry for this fight is slightly higher than Expert Cayenne, but you should be able to clear at Chimera Tech Tier 2 levels of power with a bit of patience and perhaps some assistance from other players in public rooms. As always, feel free to leave a like if you found this guide helpful, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.